All right, hi everyone. Welcome back to Indie Music Issues. My name is Björk van Benediktsson, founder of Audio Issues and author of You Get What You Give and Step-by-Step Mixing. And shameless plug for this week, I'm doing a free masterclass on mixing, from rough recording to released record. There's a link to that in the show notes or the description below. So check that out if you want a whole hour and a half with me learning about all the fun things you can do to make your mixes sound better. Ryan, who are you?
Who am I? Well, I'm Ryan from the Indie Music Academy, the channel where we uncover the mysteries of the music industry, learn how to grow a larger fan base, and earn an income from our music. I'm excited for your workshop. Everyone should want to spend an hour plus with Björk Finn because he's a great guy. And quick plug, I also have a link in the description. That's a free 3-video workshop on music marketing. So if you haven't seen that yet, the link is below. Highly recommend you check it out. So what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule. Some of you may be familiar with that, and if you are in the chat, chime in, let us know where you're listening from, let us know if you have any questions and all that good stuff. But we're talking, and also let us know how familiar you are with the Pareto principle and how you've 80-20'd your music or career in any way, because we certainly have, and it is super effective. And I think you want to take us through sort of a crash course in 80-20, since you are the one with the 80-20 music career course.
That's right. Yeah, so some of my students have actually gone through training called 80-20 music business. And the whole idea behind it is, well, the whole idea behind the 80-20 principle is that there are going to be things that are very effective in, growing your audience, whatever your goal is. That could be income, that could be the way you spend your time, right? So there are going to be things that are very effective, and then there are going to be things that are not very effective in accomplishing your goals. And the funny thing is whether you look at finance, whether you look at business, whether you even look at sports, there's this weird thing, even nature, there's this weird thing that is happening everywhere, where 80% of the results that you're trying to achieve, funny enough, the pattern is they're only coming from 20% of the effort. So that's where the 80-20 comes in. 80% of the results are coming from 20% of the effort. And it's a weird thing. And so when we apply that to music, whether it's fan-based growth, whether it's songwriting, understanding the 80-20 principle and knowing what 20% you should focus on to get the 80% of the results that you're hoping to achieve is a great way to not only save time, but to know how to spend your time to become more effective, to grow faster, and to achieve your goals in your music career.
Right.
So,
and it applies to mixing as well. I just talked about this in my email to my audience earlier today. And so I have this book called Step-by-Step Mixing, How to Create Great Mixes Using Only 5 Plugins. So where does the 5 plugins come from, and why are these 5 plugins so important? There are so many different processors, plugins out there, but what makes EQ, compression, reverb, delay, and saturation so important? Well, the fact is that those are the 20% of your plugin arsenal or your software tools that you have available inside your DAW that will give you 80% of the results in your mixes, because you have, on top of those 5 plugins, there's transient designers, chorus effects, gates, modulation, all this other stuff, but nothing moves the needle and does the job as well as these 5 plugins or these 5 processors. So that's the 80-20. So I should have called this just like the 80-20 mixing. But that's what that is. That's basically what that is. Yeah.
Even right down to, the same plugins. I find I have, 4 or 5 compression plugins, but I just keep using the same one that I understand the best.
Right.
And that's, for saving time. So even though I might have 5 compression plugins that probably all are great, using the one and knowing the one inside and out where all the knobs and buttons and settings are.
Right.
That's the 80/20 of compression plugins at that point. So I'm doing it to work faster, save time, get a great sound faster.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the 80/20 principle can be applied to almost anything. And just to get your gauge on it, how many of you guys have ever heard of the 80/20 principle? Just type down in the chat.
Yeah,
you can say, I have, or I've never heard of it before. I would love to get your feedback on that. And then also, how many of you guys, I want to gauge the audience today, how many of you guys are artists and how many are producers, bedroom producers, mix engineers? I want to see who's here today so we can customize this discussion for you. And then also we will be taking questions. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat as well. And we definitely want to make sure that we get to those today.
Definitely. Yeah. So a lot of like analyzing things from an 80/20 principle way is basically you're thinking what you're trying to figure out what matters most, what is making the biggest impact out of everything that you do, and then what does not matter and what is just busy work that you try to fill your time with. And if you can eliminate the busy work and the things that aren't necessarily moving the needle in any way, you can actually sort of add more room to add more productive tasks in a way, if that makes sense. You're sort of eliminating the 80 so that the 20 becomes more powerful.
Right.
Yeah. So
yeah, the example that I always like to say for that is like, okay, if you have like 5 social media accounts, right? It's always easy to say 5 because it's easy math, 1 is the 20, right? So if you have like 5 social media accounts, there's probably one that most of your audience exists on. So we'll just make up, we'll make up an artist. This is not based off of any particular individual, but let's say that you have an Instagram, a Facebook, a YouTube, a TikTok, and a Twitter. And those, I actually pulled that out pretty well, right? So, so those are your 5 social media accounts. It's probably true, and you can think about this for yourself, just like make a kind of a mental accounting of all of your social media platforms. There's probably one where you get more engagement. Most of your audience probably is there already, so in the form of, probably you have the most followers on this account or you get the most engagement, right?
Yeah.
And so what does that mean if we apply the 80/20 principle to those social media profiles? Does it mean focusing equal time on every social media platform? You're spending an hour on Instagram and you're spending an hour on Twitter and an hour on TikTok? Not necessarily, right? Using the 80/20 principle, instead, what you'd say is, hey, TikTok, I'm getting the most engagement. Like I'm getting a lot more results from TikTok. So what can I do? I can use the 80/20 principle to optimize the way that I spend my time. So instead of only spending 20% of the total time that I spend on social media on TikTok, well, I can just say, let's forget about Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube and spend all my time building TikTok. And doing that and turning TikTok into 100% of your focus, you're basically increasing your productivity in your social media growth by a factor of 5 at this point.
Right. Because you're going, instead of going in 5 different directions, you're going further in one.
Exactly. So looks like we got some answers in. I don't think I have control of the comments today. So
all right, we got
and
Douglas, who's a songwriter, pro songwriter full-time, also sound recording engineer, former pro live stage touring. Doug, Crossbow BMI. Cool. Welcome.
Remember Doug, yeah, he's been on a few. Good to have you back.
Yeah. Oh my God, BLK 23, production artist, instrumentalist. Gotta get.
Thanks for coming back, man. Thanks for coming back.
Tanisha, artist, beginning bedroom producer.
Awesome.
We got Josh Bell. He's from Australia, I think. Yeah, Melbourne. That's how you're supposed to say it, I think.
The Josh Bell.
And James Gadd, songwriter, creator, producer.
Welcome.
Unique and her daddy, never heard of it. Producer, songwriter. Yeah, so never heard of the 80-20 principle. Never heard of the 80-20 principle either. And then Ted says it's true in every church I've been involved in. So the 80-20 principle is super useful. Yeah, Douglas has heard of that many, many times. And MN is composer, producer. And James Gadd has not heard of it either. So cool. So we got a little cross section. Most, I would say, maybe 80% haven't heard of it. 20% have.
Yeah, the 20% have. Like,
yeah.
We did not do that on purpose. No, so it's there's a ton of examples that I thought were really interesting. You know, it's present in sports where, you know, 20% of the players will make 80% of the scores, right? Or goals or runs, depending on what sport you're talking about, right? And, you know, even in songwriting, you'll probably find that 20% of your songs will get 80% of your total streams. And it's not, you know, that's not on purpose. We never really mean for it to be that way. It's just an observation in how, how, you know, things happen in statistics, in nature. So I guess growing a fan base would be more in the statistics side of things. It's just the way things spread out. And so we just went through the example for social media. I love Douglas's comment. I call it the 80-10 because I need 10% to sleep. That's funny. Building in some rest is always a good thing.
Yeah. And it's similar in business. The sort of like 20% of your customers and or clients will get you 80% of your income in a way. And
That's
also
right.
20% of your products will probably sell, you know, 5 times as much as the other ones.
Yeah. So with merch, you'll probably find that you've got bestseller.
Yep.
Yeah, there's probably one item out of 5 that is going to sell more. They should just keep the math simple. Yeah, it's going to sell more than everything else. So what does that mean? Like, now that we've been exposed to the 80-20 principle, what do we do? Do we, you know, just file that away somewhere, or do we try to incorporate it with our marketing plans? Like, what did you do the first time that you heard of the 80-20 principle, Birkfin?
Well, I think I can't remember. It's been so long. So like I have, the first time I heard the 80-20 principle was in the 4-Hour Work Week. And this book is ragged. It has gone from Iceland to Madrid to all over to the ice, or to here in Tucson, Arizona. It's actually signed by Tim Ferriss.
Oh, whoa. Yeah. That's cool.
And it's a first edition, so it's like, it's real rough from 2008. So I don't know exactly what.
Signed first edition. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't actually think of that. But he talks about that a lot in the book. I can't remember exactly where it is, but it is really interesting to think about, you know, analyzing, okay, what actually matters the most and what matters the least. What can I do to get the biggest rewards in the least amount of efforts, sort of
right.
Thing.
So it starts with an analysis stage in the very beginning. Yeah.
And it always starts with the end in mind. It always starts with the end in mind of, like, what are you really trying to achieve? What are the inputs, and so what you're trying to achieve is this is my economics brain going on. So that's the output of what you want. What are the inputs that are required for that to happen? And out of all of those inputs, activities or whatever, what are the ones that matter the most, or what are the ones that are super important and are always necessary or crucial for that to happen? And what are the things that, like, you're kind of hedging your bets? If I also do this, this, and this, I'm like increasing the probability of that happening, but not by much, not by a giant factor. So, like, you want to think about what's the most important thing that, what's the most important input or your activity that will directly affect your output or your result,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
act accordingly, I guess.
Yeah. So for artists, drop it in the chat. What is your number one result that you're hoping for right now? It's probably going to be something along the lines of audience growth. You can even throw a number in there. Whether it's, my first 1,000 followers, maybe it's first 10,000 followers. It might be creative output. Maybe your goal isn't necessarily audience based. It's, I want to get 5 songs out,
Yeah.
But the important thing is to be specific with this goal. Wouldn't you agree? If the more specific you are, the better your 80-20 analysis will be. So let's see. Kirk says branding and marketing. I don't think that's specific enough.
Yeah.
I'd love to know a
What's
specific
the goal? And we can get into like
Mhm.
like SMART goals, like specific, measurable, achievable. I can't remember the R and T are, but
That's okay. I'll Google it for you.
yeah, Google it real quick. And because that's like, you have to be able to hit it or have an idea of like
Mhm.
when you've gotten there, because then you want to reevaluate. And like the 80-20
Mhm.
deserves to be reevaluated on occasion. Like we were talking about, where you're going to grow your TikTok first, but that might be like, there's going to be a point at which you can like, okay, I've grown my TikTok to a size that I'm comfortable with just maintaining now. So now you might have time to actually focus on a different social media or a different channel. Like when I
Mhm.
started Audio Issues, I just blogged, because blogging was this is like 2009, and so blogging was like the big
Blogging was legit back then.
yeah. And to be fair, that was a huge like it's like focusing on blogging was super beneficial to me, because over time, as I like created more articles and got more traffic, that traffic isn't necessarily going away, because I've sort of solidified my search engine optimization of Audio Issues to a certain extent. And once I've achieved that, I just know that there's the next amount of people coming in, I can focus on something else, because that was those were the biggest wins. Like, write an article, keep giving, providing value, adding to your sort of body of work as a writer, audio educator. And
Yeah.
then once you've sort of created that foundation, you can focus on something else. But if you're focusing on everything at the same time, you're never going to get results quickly.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so important to include the measurable element of goal setting. So I see some goals coming in. I want to challenge all you guys who are typing right now to really make sure that there's some kind of number, right? A number is pretty much required for measuring.
Yeah.
It could be a number in regards to output. So I want to release this number of songs. If we're talking about blogs, I want to have this number of blogs, right? Or it can be a growth goal that's also measurable. So I want to, achieve this number of followers, or I want to get to the point where my engagement looks like this, this amount of comments or this amount of likes. Right. So those are the two camps where you can set measurable goals, right, using numbers. And so let's see, we have a few that are in. So MN says high quality creation output of ever growing quality. So how are you going to measure that output? What's the number there? I'd love for you to set a number.
Yeah. Is
for
it
your output.
one song a week? Is it a released record every month?
Mm-hmm.
Is it an album every quarter, or an EP every quarter?
Mm-hmm.
So like, that's what's so interesting about the SMART goals, is it's specific. So like, what is it? Measurable, like what's the number, or like how do you know that it's done? Achievable is like, it's like achievable and realistic sort of go together for me. Is that it's something you can do, and it's realistic, and then within the time frame that you set. So if your goal is to win a Grammy, that's a great goal to have. It's a little bit maybe too like the achievability and the realism is maybe not quite. You can't just like force yourself to win a Grammy in like 12 months or whatever. But that's when we want to think of systemized thinking, because goals and systems kind of go together. And if you have a system for music creation and output and creating more and more stuff and constantly creating relationships, working with other people, achieving your musical goals, maybe you will be nominated for a Grammy at some point. Like that's
Right.
it's more likely that way than just that. Sometimes the achievability is too great. Let's see what we got here. So trying to get 3 songs out on some platform. Do I need copyright before? What platforms are best for reggae, surf, rock, and country? So interesting. Trying to get 3 songs out on some platform. So how my questions would be, where are the songs in the process? Like, are they done, or are they are you in the production process? Because none of the other questions matter if the songs aren't done. So you also want to like ask yourself if you're putting questions in your way. So like, do I need copyright before? Not really. I don't think you like if you make your songs, you sort of own the copyright. And like, I'm not a copyright attorney or anything like that, but nobody really cares about your songs, especially not if you like they're not finished.
If they
Right?
don't know about them, they don't care what they don't know about.
Right. And what platforms are best for reggae, surf, rock, and country? This like platforms, social media is not a platform that's genre specific, but you would want to, look for magazines, like e-zines or whatever they like blogs or review sites for, or sync placement opportunities for this sort of genre. But ultimately, the initial goal here is finishing the songs. So if the songs aren't finished, the other questions don't matter.
Yeah. And also, there's also a timeline missing from your goal, James.
Yeah. Like
So
when is
3 songs out by when?
When is the 3rd song? Yeah. When can I listen to this EP on Spotify is basically the question that I want to ask. Like, what's the deadline?
That's awesome. Yeah. So keep revising, because like if you guys get one thing out of today, you can use us. We'll give you feedback in real time, workshop your goal, add in all the elements that are needed. You can paste the same thing over and over again, tweaked, but let's get a clear goal with all of the elements outlined so that we can then figure out the best way to reach that goal. Because if you don't know where you're headed, it's going to be hard to plan, and it's going to be hard to build a marketing plan if that goal doesn't have all the elements needed for clarity. And SMART goal, I'm so glad you brought that up. You need to scroll up in the chat to see the full SMART goal outline. Feel free to do that.
Yeah. Alex, one of my insiders, he said his creative is a new solo album done, composed, recorded, and mixed by September 1st, 2021. That is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely, I would think.
Very good.
Right?
Very good. Yeah.
And marketing, creating, and releasing one piece of relative valuable content while producing it. So basically, following a lot of like what you focus on a lot more than I do is actually documenting the creative process and building an audience while you are making something creative, so that you have an audience to release to once September rolls around.
Totally. I love how you're setting it up that way. You're right. That's one of the things that I try to hit home almost in every training. It's like, don't wait for permission, don't wait for your release date to like start marketing, because marketing is just storytelling, and there's a story to tell now. Even though your song's not out yet, there still is the process of creating the song, the process of creating the music video or the final mix or whatever it is, or even writing the lyrics. That is a story that can be told. And even if you think that story is boring, there are more stories in your past that you should be telling to get your fan base ready for that song release.
Right.
So,
and also like telling your story and coming up with ideas for stories, they're kind of different. I think you should come up with as many ideas for stories as you can, because just like coming up with songwriting ideas or actual songs, you sometimes have to write the bad ones to get to the good ones. And your stories will only get better the more ideas you put down and think through.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the 80-20 of storytelling.
Oh, actually, great example here. My friend Joe Gilder, you're probably familiar with him. He runs Home Studio Corner. He 80-20'd his songwriting a few years ago. He talks about this on occasion, and it's a great example of some solid 80-20 analysis. He thought, okay, he wants to do a new album, and he thinks, okay, usually I would just write 10 songs and release 10 songs, and that was it. But he thought, like, well, what if I want to make a really, really great album? So 80-20 analysis, he put his 80-20 hat on, I guess, and thought, I need to write 50 songs so that 20% of those are stellar, solid songs. So 20% of 50 songs, 10 songs, that's an album. And he was right. He set a realistic, he set a smart goal in a way, because he wanted to do it in 12 weeks. So he actually achieved writing 50 songs in 12 weeks, which is a pretty solid achievement in a way.
Solid effort, yeah.
Yeah, solid effort. And his album, I think it's called Better This Way. I feel like I remember. Well, let's see if I can find it on Spotify.
Yeah. Man, I wish I can pull up comments today. I think I'm logged out or something.
What do you wanna
hit on?
I want to find this album. So this is Joe Gilder's album from Home Studio Corner. This is his 80-20 album. So pretty cool.
Yeah. So hit on MN commented at 1:19 p.m. That's like literally all I see. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so he says, I'd rather focus on something I can control, such as number of tracks per week, tapping into a new genre monthly. So I want to challenge you. So there are definitely things that you can control, like your output, right? But I like to challenge you to say that you can also control something like growth. How? Well, there are simple levers that you can pull, right? There are mechanisms that exist that result in your growth. And so, like, let's take something extremely simple, right? If you busk on a street corner, you will eventually meet people, right? And there will be some interactions that happen, right? And so what you can do is you can take that experience, extrapolate a plan based off of it, but it's a simple cause and effect, right? So that's busking. Let's, take it online now, and let's say that if you post on social media a certain amount of times, there is a result that occurs, right? So now you can extrapolate a goal based off of what you've seen in the past. So if your goal is to grow a social media account or grow your fan base, right, you can look back and extrapolate a goal moving forward based off of what you've already done. And so it's about understanding the numbers, right? Not just setting a goal to set a goal without understanding the numbers, but you can set goals on things that are, variables exist, right? Not every post is going to receive the same amount of attention, but that's why they're called goals, and you shoot for them, and hopefully you exceed these goals that you set. But even if you don't hit the goal, you're still working towards something.
Right.
So that's the challenge. I thought that was something I wanted to course correct a little bit when I read that.
And it, it kind of comes down to sort of, the inputs and outputs again, and then what is in the way of the inputs and outputs that like affect. So let's say that I post on social media an X amount of time, and because of that, I get 100 new email, or let's say I get 1,000 new website visitors. And out of those 1,000 new website visitors, I get 100 email subscribers. And out of those 100 email subscribers, 10% of them buy my book for $7 or let's say $10. And that then means that I make $100 a day, right? Because 10 times $10, it's $100 a day. And so I can extrapolate and understand my numbers going down a funnel, if you will. But it's about understanding, if I do this, what then happens? And if I do this, and if I do this different thing, does that have a bigger effect? Or like, is this thing as important as the other thing? And what has the biggest effects, thinking back to the 80-20 rule?
Right. Yeah. And just not to pick on you, MN, but I think one of the biggest blind spots is artists not creating goals around growth, or artists not creating goals around earning an income. And I think that is a missed opportunity, because usually when you set a goal and you set out to do something, you're going to achieve a lot more than you expect, because you're actually putting effort towards, something that you want.
Right.
And if you don't set those goals, and of course set them realistically, but you're basically saying that's not going to be a focus, right? So you can focus on something like output, and that's good, but without setting these other goals, what you might find yourself in is like a hard drive full of songs, and that's it. Or a SoundCloud with a ton of cool tracks, but no one's listening to them.
Right.
So I would not shy away from setting some goals that, yes, they do have variables. You never know what's going to happen as far as audience growth. You never know what's going to happen as far as income. But actually, you kind of do with a certain level of clarity if you just keep track of what's happened in the past and look at the metrics and measure. And so that's hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah. So Josh Bell says here, realistically, he wants 2 songs, or 1 song every 2 months, and then he's I want to have the system to produce efficiently. So if he's releasing 1 song every 2 months, he has 8 weeks. So what's the system here? So like, let's work it's always good to begin with the end in mind and work backwards, right? So what does release look like? Is it just having hit the publish button so that it's now on Spotify, or are you focusing on promoting the release the week before? Because then you only have 7 weeks to have it be ready to hit publish on Spotify. So what are the individual processes that you need to take from inception to whatever the song release is? Because it's maybe easier to just think about it. It's having like hit publish on CD Baby or whatever, right? Not DistroKid, because we're not allowed to talk.
We don't talk about DistroKid. Actually, we talk about DistroKid a lot.
Yeah, but so let's say it's a release record, regardless of maybe how many people see it or whatnot. But you want to have, well, how would you do this? So like, if we go all the way back to the beginning, what's the best way for Josh to write? So like, what's the most does he write with a key, like a piano and a vocal, a guitar, a vocal, or does he create beats and put things down into a DAW and then create a song around it? So like, that's something that he needs to find out. He needs to find out what's the songwriting style that gives him the biggest amount of output, in a way, right? And
the 80-20 of songwriting for him. Yeah.
And at that point, during the songwriting process, what becomes most conducive to his creativity? Is it, it's always going to be eliminate distractions, set up your session so that you can get creative immediately, use templates, and have a notebook, know what you're going to do and know when you're going to do it, like schedule time on your calendar to be creative, and also schedule a time to be sort of freeform creative. Like, don't force the song. Maybe you need a warm up maybe you have a 2-hour block of creativity that you're locking yourself in the studio, but you can't just like turn on the creative switch. You kind of need a noodle for 20 minutes. So set a timer for 20 minutes. Use the Pomodoro method and do 25 minutes on, 5-minute break, 25 minutes on, 5-minute break. Do that for 5 days in a row, and see where you're at, and then reevaluate what was the most effective and what was the 20% that gave you 80% of the results after that week. And then you form your system to produce efficiently that way, because I don't think there's like one way to produce or record or mix or write. So you kind of have to do a lot of it and then reevaluate what moves the needle the most.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer.
I hope that was helpful.
Oh, that's good. That's exactly what I wanted to do next, is talk about the 80-20 of whatever the goals are that you set. So it actually, if you guys don't mind, it'd be easier for me to just paste down your goal one more time in the chat.
Yeah.
I know it's spread out in multiple messages, some of you guys. So like paste that down again, and then let's talk about what do you actually do to achieve that goal, and how do you use the 80-20 method to focus on the 20% that gives you 80% of the results, and then you can double down on that to get to your goal faster.
Right.
I mean, that's really what the 80-20 rule boils down to.
Right.
It's achieving your goals faster, either in less effort, in less time, or just actually those are the only two options: either less effort or less time. Right. Yeah. So
this show is a good example of an 80-20, because I would rather spend an hour helping people live with Ryan, and that then becomes YouTube content to live here forever, than like script, write, record, edit, release, schedule, promote a YouTube video instead. I think this is more valuable. It's easier for me, and I think it moves the needle a lot more. And especially for people that are here asking questions and getting like basically one-on-one or two-on-one help is pretty, I hope it's valuable at least. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't be here, obviously. So
yeah. They're just here for support. They're getting no value out of this.
they're just here because they pity us. So Douglas says, I do mine on percentages because it's a measurable function of what I do. I write a lot of my stuff on is that spec? Is it? Does he mean spec?
Yeah, I think so.
Right. So when you say I do mine on percentages, I'm not entirely sure what that means.
I think he's talking about, yeah. So I think you're right. He's writing on spec, which means he doesn't get paid up front. Right. He gets paid on percentages back end. Right. By well-known artists who's requested songs to genre. Yeah, doing commercial music, you need a verse bridge, except maybe it was bridge, of course. Right. Very cool.
Millard says, release one new mix and mastered every month. So that's similar to the Josh Bell system of production. Trademark. Release one new mix and masters every month. So okay, so basically, if you're gonna add marketing or promotion to it, that basically means every like by week 3, it has to be like ready to be released. Maybe do one piece of content every week that shows where you are in the process, and then schedule time every week to finish what you're working on. Pick a song, because if you have 12, 20 songs and you don't do anything because you don't know which one to pick, it doesn't matter. You just pick anyone. Any of the songs are better than none of the songs. So if you don't make a decision, nothing will happen. And even a bad decision, even picking a bad song, or like accidentally picking your worst song, which is like something that people may fear, but it's like kind of an unrealistic fear. But even if you pick the worst song of the bunch, the worst case scenario is that you realize that it's the worst song, and now you have 19 songs to pick from, and you have to pick the next one. And as long as you don't repeat that, 20 times and keep dabbling on each song, you have to actually pick something to release and finish. So I would say pick a song, know which song you're going to pick, know when you're going to work on it, know when you're going to be mixing it, know when the mix is supposed to be done. If you're using a mastering engineer, know which mastering engineer you're going to use, know when they're going to get the mixes, start creating a dialogue and relationship with them beforehand, or if you're going to master it yourself, you just do that. You just add that on the end, and then rinse and repeat, because your first song or your one song is never going to be the one to make or break you. You might have a hit single and if you do, like, awesome, like, all the power to you. But you never really know if you have a hit single before it's basically, you're not the person that decides what is a hit. It's the people that listen to the song that make it a hit. And if it's still on your hard drive, never going to be a hit.
Yeah. I just want to echo what you said, because it's so good. Like, even picking your worst song and seeing it all the way through is still a pretty good place to be compared to not doing anything.
Right. Because in a month, you're going to be nowhere. You're going to be just in the same place. Right? This is a good, I like this question because this is a nerdy subject for both of us, is set up autoresponder sequence for email follow-up series. So you should be able to do this by next week. Because what you need in an email follow-up sequence, you need 5 emails, and depending on what you're doing. So actually, if you can follow up, like, are you an artist, or what are you promoting? What are you selling? What do you want the audience to know about you? Like, that would be helpful for us to coach you on the autoresponder sequence. But an autoresponder sequence is simple. Like, the simple one is 5 emails. There's the welcome sequence that gives them whatever they signed up for. If they signed up for a freebie of some sort, it also, you should introduce yourself and tell them what to expect. That's it.
Email number one.
Second email, there's various ways of doing it. I like telling an origin story. So read any comic book and see what their origin story is, and then write your own origin story based on what your story would be. And then you can, you maybe put your accolades, if you have hit records, if you have books out, if you have albums that you want to promote, if you have a service that you think your audience might find helpful, put that in there. Like, tell, and either put that in passing, like, the typical origin story is well, mine is basically, I was an audio engineer. I did not know what I was doing. And then through practice and repetition and doing a lot of live sound gigs and learning about this, I learned all these methods, and now I'm passing them on to you, right? And you can find them in my free blogs and in these emails. But also, if you want, a comprehensive thing, you can buy the books or be a member of the memberships or the courses, right? And so that's email number 2. It's like maybe your origin story. And email number 3 could be just like a quick win for them. What can you help them with that will just, like, they'll read that email and they'll be like, yeah, I should do that. That's something that's super helpful. I can just implement that right away. Like a quick win email, super useful. Fourth email could be if you may want to, like, do slightly harder selling sometimes, but you don't want to be like the sleazy salesman. It's easier to sell through the testimonials and stories of your customers or students. So you can do that. And then you might want to do one sort of hard sell, which is like, here's what you're going to learn in when you enlist my services, or here's the songs that I've worked on. If you want me to help you produce your song, you can expect the same results. What sort of tangible result that you can give them? That's in your email. So that's the 5 email welcome sequence, and that's it.
Yeah.
Put that in.
Great for producers. Yeah. I think Andrew is an artist too, so you just basically take that and tweak it so that they experience your artistry.
Yep.
And you're not necessarily trying to produce, or mix.
Right.
That's not your service. What your service or what your product is yourself.
Yeah.
And
you just go deeper into the story and you promote more music.
Yeah.
And like the calls to action aren't necessarily to buy your products. It's to listen to the music, to follow them on Spotify, to buy the merch, to subscribe on other social media channels where you maybe are sharing different content, those sorts of things. You never know the person that's coming in. You never know how they found you, or you can find out how they found you to a certain extent, but you also don't know if they also subscribe to you everywhere else. So it doesn't hurt to tell them, hey, by the way, I'm always doing this thing on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Make sure you like me there too, Yeah. And if you're personable and fun to get an email from, they won't hate you for it.
And Millard says, please repeat all 5 emails one more time. Recap.
Okay, well, this is recorded, so you can just go back. But welcome sequence, origin story, quick win for the customer or the quick win for the person,
Yeah.
And if you're a musician, like the quick
your
win
most amazing piece.
Like listen to the hit song, or like I know this song is going to get you in a good mood or whatever. Fourth email would be testimonials or customer stories or how other people have received help from you, and then a harder sell of like, here's exactly what you get from my stuff.
Yeah.
Or here's how you can engage with me further if you're an artist.
Yeah. If you're an artist, email 4 would probably be like your fans wearing the merch, and then email 5 would be the hard sell. Like here's where you check out, or here's a 5% coupon, to like get their rear in gear.
Yeah. Andrew says here, use 365-day content calendar. Nice. That's good stuff, right? Yeah.
That's one of my products. Yeah. Hopefully it's super helpful. Took a long time to put that together, but everyone seems to love it.
So he's asking, should you use video, use hashtags, best way to do that? So I would say, I like the question of like, should I do video or text, or what should I do? I always say, focus on your strengths. If you hate doing video, you're not going to do video well. I mean, you can try and like put out poor videos like I have and get better over time. But if you're trying to grow, focus on your strengths, focus on the social network, or focus on the channel where your audience is, and focus on your strengths, and find the Venn diagram of those two things.
Yeah. It reminds me of what Calder said, I think 2 weeks back, where he's like, I make bad videos. And then basically the conclusion of that was, well, they're probably better than you think. So find out for sure if they really are bad. Just because they don't get viewed very often doesn't mean that they're bad. Maybe you're just in that beginning part of your content creation story, and so find out if they're really bad. But yeah, video is a great way. Hashtags, I mean, they're okay. You use them, but don't obsess over them. The best way to do them is just to use a couple. Don't spam like 30 of them. I don't think that works. And then how long should the copy of videos be? Oh, just let it be however long it needs to be.
Yeah.
So your videos can be short, and that's great. Short has its benefits. Definitely. Your videos can be long, and long has its benefits. The benefits are different. So don't worry about the length. The moral of the story is just make it as long as it needs to be. And if it's not forced or awkward, if you're not just rambling for time, for like YouTube watch time or whatever, if you make that the goal, then the content's going to be awkward and weird. So just make the content whatever length, whatever format it needs to be, to tell the best story.
Ray is chiming in here. Really appreciate both of your insights in these aspects as a beat maker and aspiring producer. I really appreciate it. You are welcome. Thank you for coming. And he asked, will this recording be available online? I want to show it later to a friend of mine. Yeah, so wherever you're watching this now, it will be here later. It's just
on both of our YouTube channels. I think you're streaming this to your Facebook.
Yep.
But yeah, and then I see Miller's also asking, is there a playlist for these webinars? That's a good question. I don't think I've created a playlist on my channel.
No, me
but
neither.
There is a playlist for all uploads, and I think these are like the last 5 videos for me.
Right. Oh yeah, mine too, because I don't do any
Yeah.
other videos anymore.
I was like, I don't want to edit right now. Let's just go live. You're,
Yeah.
that sounds good.
It's way better. It's way more fun. It's
Yeah.
it's more engaging. It's you actually. I mean, in the COVID era, this is the closest you can get to like
Hanging out.
hanging out. You know.
Yeah. So,
All
yeah.
right. We're on the 50-minute mark here, and so
Mhm.
let's see if there's anything else here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we try to keep these to under an hour. Throw your questions in. We'll probably do just a few final questions and then hop off. But let me see.
Ray asks, any
There
advice
it
to
is.
producers making unofficial remixes?
That's murky
Yeah,
water.
yeah. There's definitely some copyright issues there. So I like honestly, I don't know how one goes about those well, how one treads those waters, if you will.
My advice is be careful.
Yeah.
And so if you're doing an unofficial remix, you know, it has to be completely unofficial. Like it cannot be released, or, you know, I think like since SoundCloud's still kind of like the Wild West, but that's changing. They're rolling out artist powered royalties, right? So SoundCloud's not even going to be like a place like you can show it to people with a Dropbox link. And that's probably the edge of legality there.
Right. And this is different than a cover because you're actually taking the sound recording of the previous song, and then you're not only like infringing on the copyright of the sound recording. It's different than a cover, right? Because a cover, you still have to pay. Like that's murky in a way to play in covers. There's still some stuff you have to do there. I've never actually released a cover, so I've never gone through it. I would.
You need to get your license.
There's probably plenty of advice on like the ASCAP blog. I'm a member of ASCAP, and I get their like ASCAP daily brief, and they talk about legal issues all the time. So highly recommend that. So unfortunately, we couldn't be super useful, but hope that helped at least a little bit.
Yeah.
One
at the bottom, Hiroka says, where do you get inspiration for creating content? I struggle a lot coming up with ideas to upload on social media. Well, I mean, I'll take this one because there is a tool that I made called the 365-day content calendar for musicians. And what it is, it's a content creation mini course with the 365-day content calendar tool.
Yeah.
And what that tool is 365 content prompts to give you the inspiration for coming up with content. And these prompts, you know, it's not meant to be scripted. If you get the tool, your content's not going to be the same as everyone else. What it is, it's to draw out your stories.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll drop the link for that. You can read more. But the content calendar is a tool and mini course to help get you inspired, to help get you coming up with these content ideas that you can upload on social media.
Right.
And yeah, Millard has the content calendar as well.
Yeah.
He says the 365 calendar program is awesome. I love it. Thanks, Millard.
Nice. So, well, it's also funny to and once you've gotten kind of good at content or like know enough about subject matter that you just kind of wing it, it becomes a 3 text message between me and Ryan. So what do you want to talk about? 80-20 rule? Sure.
That's literally how this happened.
Yeah. You know, and it's like a muscle. If you exercise it, it'll grow bigger. Like I've written an email to my list almost every day for 5 to 10 years. And if you do something repeatedly, it's sort of a 10,000 hour rule. So if you keep doing stuff repeatedly, your skills simply will increase, like by default or because of that. So.
I love that you said that, because at the end of the day, the goal is that you have the skills to tell your story freely, right? So eventually, you don't need to use a tool. The tool can help guide you and help draw those stories out, but you know, hopefully after 10 years, like you're, of emailing your list. Hopefully you know how to email your list after 10 years. I love that.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, and also like, don't, we can talk about imposter syndrome at a different date, but a lot of times it's like, I don't know what to email my list because like, who am I to tell like my is that you don't, and this is another plug from my book. This is what I talk about in the book a lot, is you don't need permission from anybody. Like nobody has the power to give or take away your permission for you to share your story freely on whatever channel you decide to be on.
Right.
That's simply the way it is. And if they if they try to tell you otherwise, you simply say, I'm sorry. I'm glad I didn't need your permission to do that, because you don't. So yeah,
That's a good topic. We should talk about that in the weeks to come.
Imposter syndrome. Yeah.
A lot of artists feel like, why should people care about my songs? That's imposter syndrome right there.
Yeah. And
like, I don't want to promote my music. Why should they care?
Right. But don't you think everybody's thought that way in a certain way? But it's really like, I think your creativity deserves to be in the world just as much as anybody else's.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
Cool. Well, imposter syndrome, and then collaborators and contractors in the next couple weeks. And then if you guys want to hear us riff on something, just let us know. You can either leave a comment here or email us or tag us on Instagram or on YouTube or whatever, and or come back and demand that we talk about something by leaving a question.
Yeah, love it.
All right, I think that's good for now. I think.
All right, just to sign off, thank you for coming today. Check out the links below. Björkfinn and I both have really helpful stuff for you. On my end of things, I have that free workshop that I mentioned in the beginning, 3 days of videos on music marketing for you, totally free. That's link number 1. And the second link I have down there is the 80/20 music business crash course, which is right in the vein of what we were talking about today, finding that 20% of what you need to focus on so that you can understand the music business and grow your music career is crucial for all independent artists. And so that's why I put together the 80/20 music business crash course. A lot of students went through it. It has changed the way that they view their music, and now they know what to focus on, and their careers are more set up than ever before. So that link is in the description wherever you might be watching. And then Björkfinn has also a bunch of cool stuff.
Yeah, you can get the books. They are helpful and helped a lot of people. But this week I am doing a masterclass on mixing. It's from rough recording to released record, how to confidently finish your mix, proudly release your record, and go pro with your music skills. That's on Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And links in the description below, but I'll paste that in here right now so you'll see it. And hope to see you guys there. It'll be a fun.
Everyone should want to spend an hour plus learning from Björkfinn. It's a dream come true, guys. So make sure you guys register. Literally, it's probably going to be the best day of your life. Did I hype that up too much? No,
that's close. That's too close to hyperbole for me. But I appreciate the kind words. All right, guys, take it easy. Have a good rest of your day, and see you next Tuesday.